Hello everyone, welcome to the preview video for H810F, which is, of course, the Children's Literature module. I am Lolly Robinson, the instructor. Deborah Smith will be the course TF. Deborah is local, and I'm very happy to be reunited with her. Deborah took this class back when she was a Hugsy student. She works during the day, she works in Montessori, and she has a particular interest in poetry for children. My own approach to teaching this course has a lot to do with my background. You might be expecting a children's lit class at an ed school to be taught by someone with an ed degree, of course, someone who has experience teaching these books in the classroom. But that's not me. Instead, most of my working life has been working in children's book publishing. My longest term association in the field is with the Hornbook. The Hornbook is the premier children's lit journal in the US. I have reviewed for the various Hornbook publications since the 1990s. And I've written a lot of articles for the Hornbook magazine over the years. And for 23 years, I was their designer. So one thing that made the Hornbook office so amazing is that they receive copies of every new children's book before it's published. So that comes to around or over 6,000 books a year. So there are so many good books out there, and mediocre and bad books too. So just looking for the right ones to bring into a classroom can seem really daunting. But I will be able to introduce you to the best tools for finding what you need. And as you can probably guess, those are not always the most obvious tools. So this module focuses more on evaluating and finding books than it does on using these books with children. But as a former child who stopped loving books once I learned to read, I am really eager to facilitate discussions about teaching these books, and especially about how not to teach them, how not to kill the pleasure of reading for new readers. For me, myself, my own passion within the children's lit field is picture books. When you evaluate a picture book, you get to explore how the text and the art play off of each other. And whereas in if you're taking a college level literature class, you're examining how the writing helps to create, the characterizations, the setting, the plot, the theme, and everything. But in a picture book, you're looking also at how the illustrations do all of that. What aspect of the characterization are you getting from the art, and what aspect are you getting from the text? And how are they working together? Are they redundant? Or are they perhaps sometimes telling two different stories? And the way that bounces back and forth is just endlessly interesting to me. So clearly evaluating a picture book is quite an intellectual exercise, but the thing I really like about it as well is that when you're looking at a picture book, you can't just look at it with your adult brain. You also have to put on that child brain, that child who reacts to books more emotionally than intellectually. And so the emotional effect of these literary and visual elements is really what's the most important. Because, a child is not experiencing a picture book as art and text and design. Instead, they're listening to someone read the words aloud while they look at the images in the open book. And when it's time to turn that page, there's this sense of anticipation. What will happen next? So a book is, it's not just art and text. It's not a two-dimensional thing that you can look at in a PDF. A book is a kinetic object that leads to a performance that happens over time. And if that experience is satisfying, the child might even ask for the book to be read again and again and again. So then you have to keep in mind, how might their experience of the book change over time? How does it change between the first time they experience it and the second time? What about the 20th time? over the course of the module, we won't just be reading picture books. Of course, we'll be reading sort of the gamut of books that children in elementary school could be exposed to. We do focus on trade books, which is as opposed to textbooks. So these are books that were published not specifically to be used in a classroom, but to be used by anyone. So we're going to be reading 19 children's books together. And then we're also going to read some chapters from this book, From Cover to Cover, Evaluating and Reviewing Children's Books by Kathleen T. Horning. And then we will also, from time to time, be reading online articles, mostly pieces about authors and illustrators and the act of creating books. Each week of the course will focus on a different genre. Picture books, easy readers for children who are learning to read. Chapter books for fluent readers, information books, folklore, poetry, and more. So my goal in these short 6 weeks is to introduce you to both the breadth and the depth. So the breadth of books available to you, but also find a way to go into depth in a few areas. So obviously we're going to try to go into depth as we look at the individual books that we're reading together. But also each of you will go into some depth with your final assignments. Each time that you meet in your smaller book discussion groups, for each of those meetings, I will be creating an asynchronous video that's related to that week's reading and the book creators for the readings that week. And that video is one that you would each watch on your own before you meet in your discussion groups. And by doing that, that will allow you to keep the discussion time to a more reasonable, 45 minutes or so. There is an assignment for the first class. You will be reading 2 picture books. One is a classic, and the other is relatively new and really unique in terms of the way the book is made. You'll also be reading 2 chapters from cover to cover, and a short piece online that gives you guidelines for discussing children's books. So that's pretty much it. At this point, I am filled with anticipation. I can't wait to meet everyone who enrolls and spend this intense 6 weeks learning together. Happy reading to all of you.